was so confused. I was wondering if I was dead, if I was crazy.
It was like a scene from a grisly horror movie.
We had no idea of what was wrong with her. You just wanted to cry.
Why are they sending him home and not finding any answers?
Next, two medical mysteries that defied the experts. Teenager Jessica Ciccone slips into bizarre episodes of near hibernation, sleeping for 10 days straight. Doctors are baffled, and her parents are terrified.
We don't have an answer for our daughter when she asks us what's the matter with her. My worst fear is that she had something seriously wrong in her head.
Eddie Lee always thought clean living and a positive attitude would get him through anything, until mysterious hemorrhages began ravaging his body.
It wasn't a small amount of blood. It was as though someone had slashed a major artery. I was absolutely terrified. I was just terrified.
When illness strikes, we look to doctors to give us answers. But what if they can't? For these unlucky patients, diagnosis is a mystery. In the fall of 2004, Jessica Ciccone was a high school freshman in suburban New York, on the go and full of energy.
I just loved music and playing my trumpet and piano and hanging out with my friends.
She tried track at school, she played tennis, she tried different sports here and there to keep herself occupied, but mainly she was interested in music.
She had a comfort level and always seemed to be happy and pleasant and not a lot of trouble.
Jessica had gone through the usual childhood ailments, but had always been basically healthy. Then, one day in October 2004, Jessica can't stay awake in class.
I started feeling really weird, and I was really incredibly tired, and I was falling asleep in class, and I never fall asleep in class, so that was a bad sign.
Jessica turns in early that night, figuring all she needs is a good night's sleep. But the next morning, the fatigue is worse.
My sister was trying to get me out of bed, and the bus was outside, and she was saying, "What are you doing? Why are you still in bed?" But I was so tired I couldn't get up. So I went downstairs and called my mom, and I was crying, telling her that something was wrong with me.
Robin, a nurse, senses that there may be something more here than just a sleepy teenager, and decides to take her to the doctor.
Her first visit was pretty standard, a regular checkup. Standard blood work, CBC, looking for infections. It would be what anybody else would get going into the doctor's office.
Jessica's test results all come back normal.
The doctor felt that it was probably a virus and to just watch her for a few days and bring her back in if she wasn't getting any better.
For the next few days, the Ciccones watch and wait for Jessica to rally, but she doesn't.
Jessie was very lethargic. She didn't want to get off the couch. She was not answering in full sentences. She wasn't running a fever, though, which I thought was unusual. She did not want to eat. She did not want to drink. She just wanted to kind of roll up in a ball and stay there.
What was concerning us was that we were having a very hard time just getting her up to eat something, getting her up to drink a glass of water, getting her up even to go to the bathroom. She just kept saying she was tired.
I was so confused. I was wondering if I was dead, if I was crazy, if I was sleeping, if I was dreaming. I had no idea what was going on.
Jessica continues to sleep around the clock, and Robin soon realizes that dehydration is a very real possibility. She starts waking Jessica up every few hours to force her to drink.
I would keep her sitting up at the kitchen table for 10, 15 minutes, and I would stand guard. I wouldn't let her, lay down anywhere until she finished drinking something.
On the 7th day of Jessica's slumber, Robin takes her back to the doctor.
Trying to get Jessica to the physician was a bit of an effort. We had to kind of pull her out of bed and help her get dressed. It wasn't like she was being cooperative with us. She slept all the way there in the car, and she slept on me in the chair in the doctor's office.
The doctor reiterates that it is most likely a virus, but decides to run some tests just to be sure.
The doctor took some more blood work from her, looking for certain kinds of viruses, Epstein-Barr, mononucleosis, Lyme disease, any number of different things that might cause some general malaise and tired feelings. All of those tests also came back negative.
The doctor urges Robin to be patient and just let whatever it is run its course. Then, over the next 24 hours, Jessica does seem to come around.
Maybe by day 8, she did seem to lighten up a little bit, and then all of a sudden it was over and she was fine.
And when I felt better, I felt completely better, and it was gone.
After 10 days of virtual hibernation, the episode is over, just as mysteriously as it came on.
And I said, what was going on? And she just kind of said, I don't know, I was tired. I was just sleeping.
I was just greatly relieved that she was feeling fine and back to normal.
For the next 6 months, it is business as usual at the Saccone home. The sleeping episode is a distant memory. But one evening in April, that all changes.
Her second episode came about suddenly. She had come home from a party one night, said she was feeling a little tired, and went to bed. I really didn't think there was anything wrong with that. The next morning, however, she didn't wake up.
Jessica sleeps 2 days straight. Again, she is unresponsive to her family and must be compelled to drink. And Jessica has a new symptom as well. When she's forced awake, a Herculean task, she seems to take on a childlike speech pattern.
Jessica would repeat things that she would ask for. Usually it involved food or water. She would say, I want an apple, apple, apple. That's not normal.
Jessica also seems to be abnormally sensitive to sounds.
She was laying on the couch sleeping. I was playing with her hair a little bit. And she started saying, ow, ouch. And she says, the ticking of your watch is hurting my ear.
Fearing that this is much more serious than a virus, Robin decides to take Jessica back to her doctor for a complete checkup.
The doctors ran a second series of blood tests, and the results came back normal again.
The doctor is stumped and suggests that Jessica be seen by a pediatric neurologist.
The medical doctor felt that there was a possibility that she was having something neurological going on, that she was sleeping for a reason, that maybe they could evaluate better than she could.
But at the exam, the almost comatose Jessica is barely able to follow the doctor's instructions.
It was really annoying to me because I just wanted to sleep, and he was making me walk around, and I just wanted to sleep.
Although Jessica is clearly having severe difficulty staying awake, the neurological exam itself is completely normal. The neurologist suggests that Jessica's problem may be psychological.
Having no answers just became increasingly frustrating. We didn't know who to turn to, and we felt like we were running out of options.
For 6 months, high school freshman Jessica Saccone has experienced bizarre episodes where she sleeps 10 days straight and must be forced to eat and drink. But when all of Jessica's neurological exams return normal, her neurologist concludes that the root of her episodes must be psychological.
My husband and I did not really believe that that was the problem, but not wanting to put our heads in the sand, we felt that we should go down that avenue. And we did find a therapist that was willing to take a teenager to have her evaluated.
The Saccones make 2 more appointments for Jessica, one with a psychotherapist, the other for an EEG. But no sooner have these been made than Jessica once again emerges from her most recent 10-day stupor.
The next morning, she woke up, and again, a dramatic change, completely normal, full of energy. A person we hadn't seen for, again, 10 days was there again. It's unsettling to see such a dramatic change in your child.
A day later, Robin takes Jessica in for the EEG, or electroencephalogram. The test measures electrical brain activity.
I would have preferred this EEG having been done a few days ago while she was sleeping, but we couldn't do it then.
And, as Robin suspects, the EEG comes back perfectly normal. The therapy session is soon after, and, though skeptical, the Sacconis hope that maybe they will find some answers there.
The visit with the therapist was just talking. She was trying to see if there was depression, and I knew I wasn't depressed. I'm a very happy person, so I didn't think that was a possibility.
The therapist didn't see anything wrong with her. Of course, at this time, Jessica is perfectly healthy. She only knew what I was telling her of the past 2 episodes. It was like when you have a car that has a knock, and you take it into your mechanic, and it stops having the knock, and you're explaining to them what the problem is, and they're telling you, lady, I can't fix it because I don't know what you're talking about. I can't find it.
But a month later, Jessica comes home from school complaining of feeling fuzzy again. Robin and John brace themselves for the worst. When Jessica doesn't awaken for 2 days, Robin schedules an emergency appointment with the therapist.
John and I get her to the therapist's office, and I'm kind of going, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been saying all along. And she looks at her, and she looks at us, and she said, oh my God, now I understand what you were saying.
The therapist suggests admitting Jessica to a psychiatric unit for observation, but Robin and John refuse.
Being a nurse, I really didn't feel comfortable with leaving my 13-year-old daughter in a psychiatric unit. I didn't want to have her anywhere that I could not be at least staying with her and watching her.
Having no other options at the moment, we did agree to put her on antidepressants.
After a few months of being on these medications, she continued to have episodes, and she did not find any relief. So after 6 months, the therapist terminated her treatment, saying that she didn't feel there was anything wrong with her and she didn't need any therapy at this time.
But the bizarre episodes continue to wreak havoc on Jessica's life. After missing weeks of school, she's forced to hire a tutor just to keep up.
I was getting behind in school. I would be explaining to more and more people that I don't know what's going on, but I've been sleeping for 10 days, and I feel weird when it happens, and I'm not functioning, and that's all I can tell them.
But when Jessica is not in the midst of an episode, she's perfectly fine. It is during one of these normal periods that Jessica plans to go on a bus trip to Canada with her summer camp. But near the end of the ride, it begins to happen all over again.
I was feeling fuzzy and zoned out, and I called my mom on the bus, and I was just crying, telling her that I'm getting sick again.
After a few phone calls and a very expensive plane ticket, we managed to get her flown home from Canada into Kennedy Airport.
Robin decides to take Jessica immediately to a hospital when the plane lands, so she can finally be seen by a neurologist while in the throes of an episode.
The neurologist met us there at the hospital, and we had scheduled her for a CAT scan and an MRI and another EEG. John and I felt that this was great, actually, because we were getting these tests done while she was having the episode. Maybe then they could find out what was the matter with her.
But even though she's in the middle of an episode, all of Jessica's test results return normal. Her CAT scan, MRI, and EEG reveal a healthy, if sleepy, teenager.
They said, there's nothing we can do for her here. You could take her home. She could sleep at home as well as she could sleep here. As a nurse, I understand it, but I was still very upset about it.
Devastated, Robin and John bring Jessica back home. Then, one evening, after being forced awake to drink, Jessica's frustration boils over.
She was laying on the couch and she was crying.
Jessica became very emotional and started to say things like, what did you put inside me? And get this out of my head.
Banging her fists, and she was saying things like we didn't love her.
I was kicking them and screaming and just going crazy.
It was just so unreal.
Our hearts were breaking, Mom. I'm crying on the couch looking at my husband. We don't know what to do with her.
For me, the worst thing was that I didn't have anything that I felt I could do.
Jessica's mysterious episodes are taking a toll on the family, with no credible diagnosis in sight.
We don't have an answer for our daughter when she asks us what's the matter with her. She's thinking at times that she's crazy.
I always thought that it would just not happen again. I was hoping that it wouldn't happen again. Actually, by then I knew that it would probably happen again.
The fear is that this is something that could be progressive. It could be, just threatening to everything in her life.
You just wanted to cry. We had no idea of what was wrong with her.
For the past year and a half, Jessica Saccone has been experiencing bizarre episodes where she sleeps continuously for 10 straight days. But her doctor and other specialists remain baffled as to what might be causing them.
After a year and a half of still no answers to what's wrong with Jessica, John and I we're beside ourselves. We don't know what to do for her.
Then in early January 2006, a few family members and friends call Robin after a medical TV special airs.
I started getting phone calls that said, I just saw this show and it sounds a lot like what your daughter has. I was able to pull up the transcript online and read what it was about, and it sounded a lot like what Jessica had.
From a support group website, Robin gets the name of Dr. Orrin Davinsky, a neurologist at NYU.
In many cases, I am kind of the last stop on the diagnostic train line. Many people have been to a lot of doctors before they've seen me.
Robin makes an appointment with Dr. Davinsky, knowing that he may be Jessica's last hope.
The first time I saw Jessica, she looked like a typical 15-year-old girl at that time. She was bright, she was alert, she was responsive, and I think she was frustrated by the lack of understanding and the lack of an answer.
Robin begins to describe to Dr. Davinsky what their lives have been like for the last year.
He understood what I was talking about. He couldn't diagnose it from just what I was telling him, but that the symptoms sounded like something he knew about.
Dr. Davinsky told us that the next time I was in an episode, we would go to the hospital and he would monitor my sleeping.
For the first time, the Saccones look forward to an episode. And 2 weeks later, it happens.
So I packed her bag and I packed my bag and off we went.
Jessica is brought to the NYU Medical Sleep Center, where she sleeps for several days under intense scientific scrutiny.
Jessica was hooked up to all this electrical equipment, wires coming out of her head, things on her chest. She was hooked up everywhere.
During a sleep study, we measure the brain's electrical activity, or EEG. We measure heart rate, or EKG. During her episode, she was sleeping for much of the day, and when I would come and see her, she had a bit of a glassy-eyed look to her.
I spent 4 days sitting and sleeping in the chair. It was a long few days.
And just days later, Dr. Davinsky calls Robin with his diagnosis.
He said he felt that she had Klein-Levin syndrome.
Klein-Levin syndrome is an extremely rare, complex neurological disorder characterized by periods of excessive amounts of sleep. Doctors believe that the cause of Klein-Levin is rooted in the hypothalamus, a region of the brain that regulates involuntary activity, including body temperature and sleep cycles.
The truth is, we don't know where it comes from. It often begins around puberty for both boys and girls, so it may be in some way the sex hormones are responsible in triggering it or activating the disorder in some way.
Since there is no specific test for Klein-Levin syndrome, a diagnosis can only be reached once other tests have yielded no results. But even then, the disease is so rare that not all doctors know it exists. Only 200 cases of Klein-Levin syndrome have been studied so far.
The difficulty of diagnosing KLS is really a reflection of the educational system of doctors. Doctors often don't know about less common disorders, and for most doctors, when they get presented with a case of something unusual, something a little bizarre, they tend to jump as a knee-jerk reflex that it must be psychological. The patient must be depressed.
If the Saccones hadn't fought the depression diagnosis, Jessica could have been admitted to a psychiatric ward and given powerful and potentially dangerous medication.
There are so many more things that could have been wrong with her that are just horrible. So we were kind of going with the positive and saying that this is, all right, it's something we got to live with.
Unfortunately, Davinsky tells them there isn't a lot they can do. There is no cure for Klein-Levin syndrome. But there is a way to treat the symptoms.
What we have her on at this time is Ritalin. It acts in a way like amphetamines or speed, and the hope is that if she starts to go into a period where she becomes very sleepy, that by stimulating her brain, we can at least dampen the amount of sleepiness she has.
During an episode now, I take about 60 milligrams of Ritalin, which is 6 pills a day. The point of the Ritalin is to keep me awake, which makes me drink more and eat so that I don't get dehydrated. And it also makes it a lot easier on my mom to take care of me.
There is some good news. In many cases, the disorder disappears as mysteriously as it appeared, often when patients reach their 20s.
Of the patients that have been studied, more than 90% will outgrow the Klein-Levin symptoms. And even those who have some degree of it left after 10 years, it's usually much, much milder.
To know that it wasn't terminal or I could grow out of it was definitely a relief.
I think she should do well. Hopefully in 5 years, or certainly by 10 years, there's really an excellent chance symptoms will be gone.
Today, the Sacconis have adjusted to Jessica's episodes.
I think it's a challenge for Jessica to have this condition because she's always playing catch-up.
I'm a little more motivated because I want to get into a good college, and this makes it really hard to do well. So I need to work a little harder. It makes me more motivated. I hope that in the future I will grow out of this and I can live normally and do what I want to do.
I think the moral of this story is if you're sick or someone you know or love is sick, you need to do everything in your power to help them find out what's wrong with them. You might not be able to cure it, but I think you need to keep going. Sooner or later, you'll find somebody to help you.
Jessica Sacconi's symptoms were so debilitating that they demanded attention. Ed Lee was not so fortunate.
In life, we don't necessarily get the hand we want, we get the hand we're dealt. And that's how I look at everything in life. This is the hand I was dealt, how am I going to cope?
A successful motivational speaker, Ed knew the importance of looking good and feeling confident in the public eye. But his outgoing persona and healthy lifestyle hid a private war that was slowly ravaging his body.
It was the spring of 1997, and I just noticed that I was going to the bathroom a lot. I occasionally had some mild abdominal pain, but it was just the frequent trips to the bathroom.
I noticed that Eddie wasn't working out quite as much. It seemed to be more of an effort for him. He just seemed to get a little fatigued more than he used to, which I took for he was working longer hours, traveling more.
Eddie spoke to me about some of his pain and discomfort, and it didn't seem like it was anything serious. Eddie was in great health and in great shape, and he was a young man.
But as time goes on, people start to notice odd changes in Eddie's behavior.
I was at family functions, at parties, and I would excuse myself a lot to go to the bathroom. And people were commenting on it, and I thought when it got to the point that people were commenting about it, I need to do something about it.
Edward sees his primary care physician, who offers a quick diagnosis for his symptoms: stress.
I know stress could cause a lot of things, but I know that I was not under a great deal of stress because I teach stress management programs, and I felt I had a pretty good idea of how to cope with stress.
His doctor prescribes over-the-counter stomach aids and advises him to take it easy. But Edward's symptoms persist.
He still would complain of stomach problems. This seemed more than what the doctor told him as stress.
A month later, May 1997, Edward returns to his family doctor, who is confident his symptoms aren't anything significant.
He said, well, why don't you come on down to the office and we could do a test called a sigmoidoscopy on you.
A sigmoidoscopy is a procedure where a doctor looks inside the rectum and the lower part of the colon through a lighted tube with a camera called a sigmoidoscope. The doctor may also collect samples of tissue or cells for closer examination.
When I was talking to my doctor about taking the sigmoidoscopy, he said, we're going to be examining the colon, and I thought, this is great, they could get an inside look.
The doctor said this will look to see if anything is going on. And we had our full trust that if anything serious was going on with him, this would find it, but this would rule anything out if it was something more serious.
It was not the most pleasant test. It wasn't horribly uncomfortable, but it wasn't pleasant.
During the procedure, the patient is awake, lying on one side, while the lighted tube is inserted into the rectum.
They also told me there would be some discomfort, which I did experience.
When the test results return, Eddie's colon looks completely normal.
My doctor looked at me and said, everything is clear. That validated what I had been thinking all along.
At that point, you do tend to have your trust in the doctors.
But as time goes on, Eddie begins to develop new symptoms.
He was getting worse. I noticed he was losing weight. He was losing his appetite more and more, just lying on the couch a lot, very fatigued.
Now I'm experiencing some nausea, some diarrhea, but it wasn't a major disruption of my life. It was a slight inconvenience is how I would describe it.
Though Eddie is convinced his new symptoms of nausea and diarrhea are manageable, at Beth's urging, he returns to the doctor.
He said, well, the sigmoidoscopy was clear. You could have something called irritable bowel syndrome. That could be an issue. A lot of people have it. It's very manageable.
There is no specific test for irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. And because Eddie's sigmoidoscopy exam shows no problems, a diagnosis of IBS would cover Eddie's general symptoms of abdominal pain and diarrhea.
I wasn't very concerned with the diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome because I knew my sigmoidoscopy was clear.
And if it was something more serious, they would have found it. But yet in the back of my mind, I did have concerns.
Eddie continues to live with the abdominal pain, thinking of it as a minor discomfort. But his wife notices it's starting to affect him.
He was having more severe stomach pains, I think more than he was telling all of us. And I saw it on a day-to-day basis. Something was not right.
Here I am, a young person. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I exercise, don't eat red meat. I knew there could be nothing seriously wrong with me.
For a year, Edward Lee has suffered from constant abdominal cramping, nausea, and diarrhea. He takes over-the-counter medications to control his symptoms, but in August 1998, Edward's condition takes a turn for the worse.
It was in the evening, I was home, and suddenly I felt like I had to go to the bathroom. I was expecting another instance of diarrhea, but I experienced something totally new, and this was very shocking to me. And it wasn't a small amount of blood. It was as though someone had slashed a major artery.
And he came rushing out of the washroom. I knew this was something to be alarmed about.
I called my family doctor after hours, and he said hemorrhoids could cause a lot of bleeding.
The doctor did not seem concerned at all.
He said if it would make you feel better, you could go to the emergency room.
The doctors admit Edward to the ER and keep him overnight for observation. While reviewing Edward's blood work, they make a surprising discovery. They diagnose him with a simple case of food poisoning.
What happened at that point, they put all their emphasis on the food poisoning and no longer did any follow-up work with the rectal bleeding.
In the back of my mind, I kept thinking I wish they would have done more tests with him at the ER.
Thinking they've solved his problem, the doctors send Edward home and tell him he should be feeling better within days.
But within the next few weeks, he started having stomach pains again.
2 months later, in October 1998, he begins bleeding again, and Eddie goes back to the doctor.
He once again explained that hemorrhoids could cause this type of bleeding. And at this point I said, well, at least I know what's going on now. I have hemorrhoids, and this is yet another manageable condition that I'm going to have to live with.
Hemorrhoids wouldn't cause stomach pains. They wouldn't cause the nausea he was experiencing. And I was beginning to get frustrated. Why are they sending him home and not finding any answers?
Just months later, in the middle of the night, Edward runs to the bathroom with abdominal pain. But this time, he's horrified by what happens next.
I experienced rectal bleeding. Once again, it was a significant blood loss, like someone had sliced an artery. The next thing I remember is waking up on the bathroom floor, and I realized I was completely covered in blood. It was like a scene from a grisly horror movie. I was just so stunned I couldn't move. And for a moment there I thought, maybe I'm still in a dream state. And then reality set in and I realized that this is real. I was absolutely terrified. I was just terrified.
Despite his weakened state, Eddie tries to clean up all traces of the blood to avoid scaring his wife. But that turns out to be impossible.
I saw bloody footprints all over our carpet. It looked like someone had been murdered in the house. I asked Eddie what happened. He told me he had passed out and he didn't want me to be alarmed, so he cleaned the washroom floor because that's something he didn't want me to wake up to and see.
The next morning, Edward calls his doctor about the fainting.
I told him that I had passed out and woke up on the bathroom floor covered in blood, and he said, well, as I've told you before, hemorrhoids could cause significant blood loss. And I said to him, but this was not only a lot of blood, I actually passed out. I had never passed out before. And he said, if you'd like, we could schedule another sigmoidoscopy.
The hemorrhoid diagnosis just did not make any sense. I just felt like he was being sent home with a simple diagnosis that did not seem to correlate with what was really going on. Yeah, I was getting scared at this point. It has to be something more serious. Why aren't the doctors helping us?
Eddie Lee has suffered abdominal pains, nausea, diarrhea, and rectal bleeding for 2 years. After fainting on his bathroom floor from blood loss, Eddie's doctor suggests a second sigmoidoscopy, a test that will examine his lower colon.
I thought, I just have a really bad case of hemorrhoids, even though my family members were much more concerned than I actually was.
People started noticing that Eddie just doesn't seem like Eddie. He just seems tired a lot. They noticed the weight loss. They noticed he was getting very pale.
In 1999, the Lee family switches to a new medical insurance plan, which does not cover visits to Eddie's current doctor. So his second sigmoidoscopy falls through the cracks. The Lees decide to start fresh with a new doctor on the new plan. But he doesn't realize he will see his new doctor sooner than he thinks.
I woke up and I experienced the most significant abdominal pain in my life. It was just excruciating.
It was the type of pain he could not get out of bed. He could barely stand.
And my first thought, I'm going to my big speakers convention in a few days. I never missed this convention and I'm not going to miss it this year. I'm going to call my doctor.
Well, Mr. Eddie Lee came to my office as a result of making a same-day appointment. We had never met before.
And he examined my abdomen. I noticed one thing that was different than my other doctor visits is he spent a significant amount of time examining my abdomen. And I thought, wow, this doctor is very thorough, because most of the other doctors, it was very quick.
Well, typically at someone his age, with the degree of abdominal discomfort that he had, I would think of a enteritis, a gastroenteritis. However, he was having this bleeding.
Dr. Adams thinks Edward may be suffering from Crohn's disease, a disorder that causes inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract. He orders a CBC, or complete blood count.
I was surprised he had not had a CBC before, considering the fact that he had complained of rectal bleeding for a fairly long period of time.
Eddie was telling him about the rectal bleeding, about the stomach pains. But at least the first time I felt like, okay, now a doctor is at least listening to my husband and not just sending him home.
I did go to that convention, and throughout most of the convention, I actually did feel very sick. I actually spent about half the convention in my hotel room. When I got back from my convention, within about an hour of being home, the phone rang, and it was my doctor's office. And I remember he said to me, are you experiencing any fatigue? He said, the reason I ask is because the blood work reveals that you're very anemic.
Eddie's blood test shows anemia, or a serious loss of red blood cells. Because anemia in a younger male could be a sign of a gastrointestinal tract disorder, Dr. Adams orders a new test for Eddie, called a colonoscopy.
A colonoscopy is the best test to look directly at the entire length of the colon.
I said, I think I had that test done a couple years ago. He said, no, it sounds like you had another test, which is a sigmoidoscopy.
A colonoscopy is a medical test that uses an endoscope, a thin, flexible instrument that has a light and lens or camera on its end to view the inside of the large intestine. If abnormal areas are seen, the tissue can be removed and examined under a microscope to determine whether disease is present. Unlike a sigmoidoscopy, a colonoscopy travels the length of the whole colon. Eddie's colonoscopy is scheduled for the following day.
And I was beginning to feel maybe we're finally going to get some answers. This test might find what's really going on.
I went in for the colonoscopy and I was sedated, and I remember waking up from the procedure, and I remember my doctor standing next to me, and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, but during the procedure, we found a mass.
Eddie Lee has just had a colonoscopy to find out what has been causing 2 years of abdominal pains, nausea, diarrhea, and rectal bleeding. Eddie examines the test imaging with his doctor.
And he showed me the picture, and he said, we took a sample for a biopsy. We'll get the results back in a few days, but we are quite certain that you have colon cancer.
Eddie's family is stunned by the cancer diagnosis.
I couldn't believe what he was telling me.
The first thing that went across my mind, I'm going to lose my husband.
You start thinking mortality and death, and I didn't want to lose my brother.
It's something you don't want to hear.
After he mentioned the word colon cancer, nothing else seemed to register. I was just in that shock of hearing that word cancer.
And then I felt I should have been with Eddie. Again, I felt like I let him down. At least holding his hand when he got the diagnosis.
Eddie is scheduled for surgery to remove the cancerous mass. The night before the operation, Eddie and Beth share what they realize might be their last moment together.
Eddie told me, I just need to tell you I love you. He said, because I know you don't always come out of surgery. I said, no, don't even say that. You're going to make it.
You know, when I talked to Beth, there was, lots of tears, and it was, very emotional. And I knew that, I might not make it, but I told Beth, I'll give it my all. Now you got me all emotional here.
Eddie decides that a positive attitude is the only way to get through the ordeal.
I remember going in for the surgery, and I was in this I can cope mode. I felt like I needed to be strong for everyone.
He went into surgery, and he brought a clown nose.
So I had my little red clown nose on, and I remember they were preparing me for surgery. I told everyone, could everyone stop for a moment? And they all turned around, and I said, is everyone here in a good mood? And they said, yes. And I said, okay, you may proceed, because the last thing I would want is a bunch of grumpy people operating on me.
What the surgeon does in the operating room is to open up the abdomen and to isolate the colon and remove that segment of tumor, as well as what we call lymph nodes. These are glands inside of our body that drain fluid. It's very important to remove the lymph nodes to tell you how extensive this cancer has developed.
The wait for the surgery was, again, it was like one of the longest waits. Just hoping the surgery goes okay. I just didn't want them to do the surgery and find a huge mass that had already spread all over. That was my biggest concern.
In a 4-hour operation, doctors remove a tumor the size of a grapefruit, 12 inches of colon, and 17 lymph nodes. But there's still one more step to be done.
While the surgeon may be able to make a preliminary diagnosis, it's really going to be the pathologist who is going to really do the final designation of what we call staging.
The last day of my hospital visit, the surgeon walked in and he said, "We have the results of the pathology report," and he told me that you have stage 3.
In stage 3 colon cancer, the growth, or tumor, has penetrated the bowel wall and invaded the surrounding lymph nodes. And there is the danger. The cancer will spread into the abdominal cavity. Colon cancer is the 3rd most common form of cancer in the United States.
Stage 3 colon cancer patients generally have about a 60% 5-year survival.
Eddie's stage 3 colon cancer diagnosis requires mandatory chemotherapy follow-up treatment. A grueling chemotherapy regimen with 2 different drugs tests Eddie's capacity to maintain his positive attitude.
The chemo, that was intense. It was hard seeing him. I think even more sick during the chemo than when he actually had the cancer.
One question lingers in the back of Eddie's mind. Why had his previous doctor misdiagnosed him for so long?
In terms of my healthcare professionals, they were probably thinking, well, this is a young guy. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he exercises, doesn't eat red meat. It's highly unlikely at his age he would have something serious like colon cancer.
Eddie's colon cancer was in the right side of the colon, an area we call the cecum. And that's an area of the colon that can contain a lot of tumor without a patient having any symptoms for a very, very long period of time.
Even if Eddie had received a second sigmoidoscopy test, the only colon exam he was given, it would have been worthless. A sigmoidoscopy can only let doctors see the first half or left side of the colon. Since Eddie's cancer had been on the right side, the tumor went undetected. If Eddie's tumor had progressed to stage 4 cancer, his 5-year survival rate could have plummeted to under 10%.
I was angry at my first doctor for not telling me that I was having a partial test. It would almost be like someone going in for a mammogram and only having one breast examined.
Now I have to have the surgery, and I'm going to have chemo, and I'm going to have this, and then I'm going to have that, and that's how I look at everything in life. Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. And this is how I look at everything. We move.
Now 5 years cancer-free, Eddie combines his experience as a colon cancer survivor with his motivational speaking career, giving speeches about health advocacy.
We need to take charge of our health care. This doesn't mean going in and bossing our doctors around. What this means is no matter what illness we're dealing with, whether it's cancer, heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, we need to know what's going on.
Okay. Yes.
When a patient has a complaint and it's persistent, no matter what the statistics may show, that's where the art of medicine comes in. And so I think the key here is listening to the patient.
Today, Eddie, Beth, and their family of pugs live life one day at a time.
We never thought one of us would be diagnosed with cancer. And don't take because you're young and healthy for granted. And appreciate the people in your life.
After my diagnosis, a friend of mine sent me an email, and the email had just the perfect quote. It was just what I needed to hear at that time. And it was a quote by actress Annette Funicello, who has MS. And she said, "Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. Even with cancer, life is wonderful."